Space, the final frontier. Well, okay, not really. All right, take two. Here in the Mitten State, welcome to Code 47, bringing you all things Star Trek, spanning the quadrants, the best thing since the neutral zone.
Hey, we are back with the Code 47 podcast on the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. This is episode number 149. I am Charlie Carden. Recent addition to Memory Alpha and IMDb because of my time on Mission Log. I am your humble servant, Trek Lord of West Michigan, joined as always by my number one, Mr. Peter Stein. Peter, good morning.
Good morning.
And very excited to have a returning guest host, LeRon Dawkins of the Boss Rush Network. I hope I said that correctly. How are you?
Yeah. Oh, I'm all right. Thank you. Yeah,
Awesome.
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Happy to be back.
Awesome. Yeah, we were talking in the pre-roll. I'm glad to have LeRon back on an episode where we are not just destroying something as we did with Section 31 movie, which is his appearance a little bit earlier this year.
I'm curious. How was the fan reception to my comments about Section 31?
You know, I would tell you if anybody ever gave us any legitimate feedback. I would love it.
No.
Maybe we'll get there someday. But yeah, as far as I know. But LeRon, like anyone, I would tell you, tune into our Discord. It's a great place to have those kind of conversations on our Star Trek that I'd love to have you. So we can talk about that off book, but I'd love to have you on board there. So
okay, yeah.
But anyway, yeah, we got a fun show today. We're going to be doing a random episode, and in particular, LeRon is here for this episode because he was the random episode chooser of the episode we're going to talk about. So that should be fun. I'll keep that quasi-mysterious until we get there. And then we're going to jump into talking a little bit about Season 7 of Star Trek: The Next Generation. But first and foremost, as always, going to talk about the wonderful folks on our Patreon Secret Friends Super Squad. These are the folks that get shows like this one early when we record on a weekend. I publish it on a weekend and everybody else gets it the following Monday. So that's nice. Other shows we have free of ads, other different bonus shows. We've got a Discord channel just for our Patreons. Check this out. It's a three-pronged approach, 7 days for free, 50% off your first month, and then you can stay on board for as little as $2 a month. Can you even believe it? A lot of entertainment for just $2. These folks know what's going on. My buddy Derek Trevelyan, who is my figure collecting partner here in Grand Rapids. Francie, my wife's hairdresser. My wife just, Francie, if you're listening, April's hair looks great. She just got it done while I was gone on business this week. Mr. Luke Lore, the Xbox expansion pass, and my uncle Tim. On the Friends with Benefits level, John Sidorf, Brendan Myers, Corey in HD, Matthew Keel, my buddy Kurt Krug, who I'll get to see next weekend at Motor City Comic Con. He's a journalist pal who helps me out with all the great interviews you hear over on our Patreon Spotlight. Our friend Tanya Lee, Chipotle Bear. And then we're getting into our new Patreons, our friend Famous Seamus. We're going to circle back to him because he is getting his Star Trek bonus race and job this week. But also Jay Newport 007, Cam the Movie Man, and Brian Osterman, a.k.a. Darth Prozac. All right, circling back, Famous Seamus, Star Trek race and job. With a name like Seamus, now this is really spot on because with a name like Seamus, I think of my own Irish heritage, right? Seamus is a very Irish name. The subject of our random episode is an Irish Star Trek character. So, kind of extrapolate from that, whatever it is that you need to. But I'm going to say he is a holographic character in Tom Paris's Fairhaven holodeck program on Voyager, and he is the dentist. He is an holographic Irish 19th century dentist. There you go. Nice. Peter, off to you.
Well, I'm going to go off the wall like I normally do. And because it was in my brain, I'm going to go with a benzite. So, the guys with the breathers. So, and then for job, we're going to go somewhat tied to yours, but a little more off the wall. And you're going to be running the 10 forward on one of the Starfleet vessels.
Oh my! So, okay. A benzite. So he's kind
A
of getting high.
benzite bartender.
He's getting high on his own supply while he's pouring
Well,
drinks. Like, so
I mean, it's
LeRon,
synthahol, so it doesn't have fumes. You got to make your own.
yeah, exactly. Unless you're making what's that dream with the Guinan was making that one drink once that
Oh, the sunset. Yeah.
the sunset. Yeah, exactly. Correct. LeRon, you're more than welcome to jump in if you want to give this an off the cuff, or you're welcome to take a pass. I know we just kind of threw this at you.
I don't know. I kind of want to participate.
Do it.
Wait? So just so I'm
So-
on point on this. What's the
You-
rule?
It's a Star Trek race,
Mhm.
alien or otherwise, or whatever it is, and then an occupation, a job.
A Star Trek race and an occupation. Okay, I thought I had it right. Okay. All right. So actually, one of my all time favorite races is the Trill. So yeah, I would go for Trill. And I would probably say for the job, you know what? Actually, because I just got through watching Star Trek Insurrection not too long ago. I loved Ensign Perrin, and I would have to say, someone at the helm.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah. So
Gotcha.
a red shirt that's got guaranteed plot armor.
Gotcha.
You're
Right,
not
yeah.
gonna die. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is funny because the person who preceded Ensign Perrin in Star Trek First Contact was Lieutenant Hawk, played by
Yeah.
Neil McDonough, who did not have plot armor because he got mortified and then shot and
And-
flew off into
And then
space.
following Insurrection, I don't even remember his name, but he got sucked out
Oh,
into
he got
space.
He got
She's
sucked
the-
out the.
She's the only one who
In the films, who doesn't get blasted out some
Well, you know
because
what?
in Generations the helm officer got knocked out and then Deanna had
Yeah,
to do it.
I was going to say in deference to Generations, that is actually Tracy Lee Coco.
Yeah, she didn't die.
Who
but-
played Jay, who was a background player that was and I think that was she may have survived Generation. We know each other.
Well, she was in Insurrection. She was in Insurrection because she was in the dining hall during the opening.
So the
scene.
character didn't.
Oh.
So like in Generations, he didn't die.
Right.
It was just like you're
Yeah.
just not flying the ship.
Insurrection, your helmsman didn't die,
You're right.
but
So it was kind of it wasn't even it was odd even. So odd lived.
it's you have a
even
50-50
died.
chance of dying if you're on
Right.
the Enterprise E and you're at the
Exactly.
helm.
And
Well,
as I said, shout out to Tracy Lee Coco or Ensign Jay. We know each other on social media. We interact sometimes. So she's pretty fun. I met her at Star Trek Las Vegas a number of years back. But all right. And then to finish off, the Secret Friends Super Squad, our biggest fans, the awesome Nias family of the Twin Cities, Sean, Stella, and Henry. We're very glad to have you guys on board. Thank you for all that you do. We are completely barren of news this week. We do not have a Paramount Plus drop date for Stranger World Season 3, which leaves me seething. But that information has to be coming. I just absolutely have to imagine, at least by that June 14 Tribeca Film Festival date, where we know people will be seeing an episode. There's got to be some news. I'm of both minds about it. I understand while they're holding it back because it's all they've got. But as a fan and as a content creator, I'm extraordinarily annoyed. So
Do we know which show was more expensive to produce during the time frame that both Discovery and Strange New Worlds was on, or were they both equally splitting like the big budget?
That's a great question. I have never really heard that addressed. So that was, I mean, I don't know. What do you think? I mean, I think the shows had a similar enough look to them.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was
I think Discovery probably had just a slightly bigger budget because Discovery was very spectacular what it does. Not saying the Strange New Worlds was not visually striking.
Visually, yeah, I would. You know what? I would postulate that I kind of agree with that. So,
Yeah.
Peter, what do you think?
I would tend to agree with that.
Yeah.
If only because I think Discovery had like the budget because it was the flagship show.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it would have that kind of deference.
Right.
Also-
and Strange New Worlds reused stuff from Discovery. Like you had some episodes where they had like test ships and stuff, and they were clearly reusing sets.
Right. The sets,
Yeah.
yeah. Just like all the heritage shows did, you know. I mean,
Oh yeah, I'm not knocking them.
yeah.
I'm just saying like
Yeah,
that's a way to save the budget. So.
yeah, I mean, sets from the motion picture survived all the way to the end of Voyager, you know, so a span of almost 20 years, over 20 years. So anyway, all right, well, when we have news, we will share it. So let's jump into random episode. This is something that I think I'm glad we came up with that. I don't know. I think Peter and I brainstormed about this one, but it's the concept of doing a random selection, like the roll of a dice in Dungeons and Dragons, to come up with an episode. I've had people, like LeRon and just other people in general say, hey, pick a number, and then a number is assigned to a show. Then it begets a season. Then it begets an episode, and that's how we get something random like this. And LeRon, this one was yours. Did you want to read the summary right quick?
Oh yeah. All right.
Go
So
for it.
all right, so yeah, my random sode was from my favorite series still to date of Star Trek, Deep Space Nine, season 4, episode 19, Hard Time. Okay, so it's a Miles Must Suffer episode. So there you go. So convicted of espionage, Miles O'Brien is given the memories of 20 years in prison in a matter of hours. Once he returns to DS9, O'Brien finds that he cannot shrug off the memory of his awful experience or get rid of the guilt he feels over the death of his cellmate. Which there's a hook on that one, by the way.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me see. So teleplay was by Robert Hewitt Wolf, who a lot of us know was a
Yep.
longtime Star Trek veteran.
Right.
Story was keyed by Daniel Keyes Moran and Lynn Barker, and it was directed by another all-star, Alexander Singer.
Big time. All right. So yeah, to my regard, I'm guessing, because the story by is a couple of names that I don't necessarily know. It's kind of it's a chance these were minor players, and a chance that this came out of the slush pile script. So, and when you get a slush pile script, the results can be very mixed. You can get something brilliant like yesterday's Enterprise came out of a slush pile script, and that's one of the most brilliant episodes of all of Star Trek. But more on the average, I think you can get sometimes stuff that doesn't necessarily fit the bill. So, please.
It's crazy you mentioned yesterday's Enterprise, because apparently, like one of the major big changes that would have happened if they went with the original script is Sarek would have been Sarek would have been more of a factor in that, and
Really?
would have had a lot more to do with the Romulans.
Interesting.
Yeah.
If we can swing it, something that's on the schedule is Larry Nemechek, Dr. Trek, who we interviewed over on our Spotlight show that just dropped recently on our network feed, is actually planning to come back and talk to us about that exact same episode on this program. That could be happening next month. It's on the schedule. So I hate to promise things that I can't deliver, but it's on the schedule. So when we know it for a fact, I'll let you know. But I put the random sode up to him, and he said, "Oh, I'd love to talk about yesterday's Enterprise." So I said, you got it. So you could look forward to hopefully hearing that in the near future. But let's get into this. So Peter, since we've been talking, you haven't been, why don't you get us started? Start to walk us through the episode and give us your notes, give us your thoughts.
All right. So in the episode, obviously we have the description. So the episode begins with, I believe, O'Brien coming out of this experience.
I wrote a very cold open, because he's sitting there on the ground making markings in the sand, and he's got this giant gray Irishman's afro, which I think his hair wasn't really long enough for it to have been 20 years. I feel like he should have been looking like ZZ Top or something. You know what I'm saying? I mean, doesn't that make more sense? But I mean, again, it's an implanted memory, as we come to find out. But I did note that I love that the Starfleet uniform, so kind of the most screen time awarded uniform, is the DS9/Voyager jumper with the colored shoulders. That's a very durable garment. He wore that thing for 20 years, and it looks crappy, but Tom Riker wore his like jumpsuit for like 8 years, and it was all torn up. So I mean, I just think it's very durable.
To be fair, that was also William Riker. I need to climb over things and crawl under shit. Whereas this was Miles O'Brien. I'm in a room with sand.
I think it was in the season 6 episode, was it Rocks and Shoals, where they talked about the resilience of the Starfleet uniform. At that time they were wearing the combat uniform that
the blacks and grays,
that debuted in First Contact.
The monster gray. I know Worf talked about it when they were wearing this style of uniform, in that really not great episode where they were all on Ryza together, and he said, well, Starfleet uniforms are designed to be comfortable in any environment. And I'm like, how? It just looks like an outfit. It doesn't have, like, I don't know, but what, now we're kind of drilling into minutia. So anyway, Peter, back to you.
So yeah, we have O'Brien. He's in a cell, and then he goes out into the light, and then suddenly he's normal O'Brien that we've seen. And Kira's like, "Oh, that must have sucked, Chief." And he's like, "What the hell just happened?"
Yeah, right.
That must have sucked.
That's pretty much what she does. Like, "Man, Chief, that sucked." And I was like, "Wait, what?" It's only been a couple hours. What the shit? And then
I know. I got to tell you, they kind of lost me right here, because again, listening to Kira describing, then again after once we get into the first act, after the opening credits, Cisco goes on to elaborate when he's explaining it to Keiko, is that he was fiddling around. They thought he was committing espionage. He was tried, convicted, and corrected.
Yeah,
and then
like that.
And then before we could figure out what was going on. So my question is, was Kira there? But she was like, I'm in a different meeting and whatever. And then she comes and she's like, where's O'Brien? Because she flies him home. So I feel like unless he was already there in a different runabout, and this happened in the Gamma Quadrant, so they had to go through the wormhole and all this stuff.
It definitely seems like it was one of those situations where like Kira went off to do Kira things and O'Brien went off to do O'Brien things.
And they're supposed to have lunch, and she's like, why isn't he here?
And he's like, where's O'Brien? O'Brien is suffering, as is tradition.
It seems super sus that Starfleet wouldn't have gone like ape shit that they did this, because it's a complete violation. He was assaulted, and they imposed justice on him. I mean, as noted in the fun facts when we go back after the episode, they do this again in Voyager, with a development that makes a lot more sense, but we'll talk about it in a minute. But I was already like, this is this is not cool. But anyway, especially like later, like we have this whole thing where O'Brien has to like relearn how to use the tools, relearn like how to function on the station, then reacclimate himself with his family, who he was like assuming he would never see again. Well, he didn't think he'd see anybody ever again. He figured everybody was knows what. So
there's this really kind of fun scene where it's him talking to Jake, and it's like, this is this hyper spanner and this is that. And like, that was kind of fun. It's like, you got it, Chief, we're good. No, I really think we should need to go through it again. And Jake is just like, no.
I'm the chief. It's my call.
Reminds me of when they were re-educating Uhura after she got mind wiped from the Nomad Probe.
She was like, "This is a cat," and I'm like, "Okay." And then the next later in the season, the episode, she's fine. And then all the episodes that follow, she's totally.
Well, the hilarious thing is like she's like A, B, C, and then she's reading like cuneiform like 20 minutes later. It's like, holy crap!
Oh yeah, Starfleet, or she's just and it's fun. I'm going to use the word Mary Sue, but that's actually a Star Trek expression.
It does come from there,
if you've never Googled the origin of that word, it actually does come from Star Trek, but someone who's great at everything without trying. But anyway, yes, let's not get too far, of course. So we end up back on the station, if I might, and then O'Brien is walking and talking with, I think it is Keiko, and he's listing off all the times that O'Brien has ever been in a jam, in a duress, or he's been tortured. And I'm like, like Scotty or Geordi or B'Elanna. I mean,
what is it about the engineers?
Who's putting on the red and or gold, depending on the decade or the century? Who's putting on that shirt? Because you know what? Nobody else consistently gets the shit beat out of them like somebody who works in engineering. It's just it's just bad. I mean, and I think the tradition even went on in
Enterprise. Trip was the same one who got
Trip. Trip was like the universal punching bag in that series.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that it had. We didn't have. Well, we had it in Discovery. They kind of juxtaposed.
There wasn't exactly a chief engineer in Discovery until Reno came along.
Stamets did get worked over a couple of times.
But she also went through some bad stuff. Hemmer, your Hemmer, Peter. Died. So that is without a doubt the just absolutely crappiest gig, which I think that's what
it's one of those things of like,
It's like that
Do
old
you have
Chestnut, right?
something against engineers?
Yeah. Tell me where the engineer hurt you.
Well, I mean,
Tell me that you don't like your car engine without telling me that you don't like your car engine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Oh my gosh.
As a former Navy guy who was an engineer, like
Oh,
engineers
and you're
got
wearing a
hurt
red
a
shirt.
lot. Yeah. Oh no, we were blue shirts.
No, I mean you're wearing a red shirt right now.
Oh yeah, I'm wearing yeah, I knew I was coming on the
Oh
show.
my gosh.
Had to wear the red shirt.
I'm wearing if you can't quite see because I sit too close to my screen. I'm
it's
wearing
the never forget. It's the
Wolf 359, which is
359, not not the one from Strange New
go.
Worlds. Okay.
Ta-da! There you go.
Yep.
Yeah, I know. I sit too close. But anyway, so we do find out that DS9 has its own counselor, a la Counselor Troy Nori is the name. And
but we never see this person.
I thought I read somewhere that a Starfleet counselor was a job almost exclusively suited to being a Betazoid or being someone who's a telepath. Maybe that's not canon, but I thought, what kind of name is Nori? Is that, I don't know. Yeah, exactly. It would be helpful if we saw that.
For whatever reason, I always thought this person was a Bajoran.
Okay.
Yeah, me too.
So not Starfleet. Yeah. So like, okay. Yeah, I can. But yeah, so like Tel Nori, like it's two words, like they're
Tel space Nori.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, you know what? That makes a hell of a lot more sense. I like that. So, but yeah, so the episode is interspersed with O'Brien reliving the time of his correction, and he had this cellmate that he won't tell anybody about, who's this alien looking dude who's very chipper, and he's keeping O'Brien from totally going nuts. But of course, like anyone who would spend 20 years in this confined space and be starved and apparently be beaten and couldn't use the toilet as often as they want to. More toilet humor in Star Trek. They don't use the words waste extraction, but that comes up in DS9. Like that became like a 47 gag talking about waste extraction. But yeah, these were the things that O'Brien says, well, I don't want to talk to the counselor because he wants to ask me about, how many times I got to go to the bathroom, or, how often the guards beat me up or whatever. And so it was kind of illustrated throughout all of this, that their rations got cut all the time. So each R had to squirrel away food in his fake rock, which the fake rock, if anybody searched the room, I think they'd find that right away because there's this huge gap between the rock and like the next rock. I'm like, plus it all looks fake because it's a set. What are you going to do? Yeah. So everybody's kind of pitching in, trying to help out. I like the scene with Worf trying to play darts with him. That was very endearing. I'm like, because they've known each other since the beginning of the Golden Era, since the encounter at Farpoint, because they were on the Enterprise together. So O'Brien's trying to get back into his life. We meet Munez, who is an enlisted engineer, and I'm like, I feel like this is like 3 times we've seen him, and the 3rd time we see him, he dies, which is kind of a bummer. So
yeah,
it was kind of.
Yeah, I actually liked his character throughout the because wait, did they lost him in what? They lost him in season 5.
Yeah,
they lost him in season 5. So like the few times we got to see him, like he actually had really good growth.
Right.
for a walk, I'm gonna say walk on character loosely because like it wasn't like he was episode after episode, in these 2 seasons he was in.
Yeah, he wasn't recurring, and he wasn't a
one-off either.
Right. You know what? I take it back. This wasn't his first appearance. His first appearance was at the beginning of the season in that Starship Down with the Jem'Hadar, and they were stuck in the.
That's
cloud.
right. And when Worf had to learn how to take command.
Yeah, exactly. So he was one of the engineers. So yeah, it's kind of a bummer. So, but yeah, like so we're later on in the episode, and he's having another correction flashback, and now O'Brien it's not quite as puffy as the end of the episode, but his hair is big, and he's speaking in like that biker voice, so it looks like he's from like Sons of Anarchy or something, which I think that's the show that Captain Pike came from. Wasn't he a regular character on that? Yes, there you go. So there's a correlation for it, and he just gets like meaner. He in the real world, I think the episode could have just been called O'Brien Gets Snippier as time goes by, because he's trying to fit in, and then he's getting more pissed, and then there's the penultimate scene where after he's blown up at Bashir. And he almost breaks. I love it how he's having this interaction with Quark in the bar, and he's like, "Quark, I want my drink." And then he grabbed Quark's arm, and he's about ready to break his wrist. I did notice how nobody came to Quark's rescue in this busy bar. People were just like, Okay.
Yeah.
Because proof, kind of proof that nobody gives a shit
Parker's
about
getting
him.
attacked again. He must have done
Whatever.
something shady.
I guess, I know it'll slow down my getting my drink, but what am I supposed to do about it? But the big penultimate one, and I noticed a weird costume note here, and Peter, you'll appreciate this, and you're touching your pip, so you probably know what I'm talking about. When O'Brien's getting his dressing down from Cisco and they're sitting on the little couch in Cisco's office, I've noticed as time went by with any of the turtlenecked outfits, and I have several because I'm a customer just like Peter is, they developed a curved backing to the rank pips, which at this point I don't think they have, because Cisco's is like at a tilted angle where it's pointing down as you look at the close-up of his neck, which is just like, oh, that's not a good look.
Yeah, I did notice that, and in my rewatch of it to get ready for the show, I did
Yeah.
notice that. And I was like, man, like I don't know. I'm always one of those people. Like, I'm kind of like the uniform police. Like, oh my god, there was a stretch
Us
of
too.
Voyager. There's a stretch of Voyager where Tuvok and Paris were wearing the wrong damn rank.
Yes, first season. We talked about this extensively in something we did recently, Peter, didn't we? Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, it was what it was? It was when not to brag, it was when I was on Mission Log with John Champion. We were doing the episode Fury from Voyager,
Yep.
which had to do with Kes going back into the past. We talked about it recently on this show, where it was at one point they had the pips wrong, but they had it wrong being right because Tuvok had his regular pips, but at that point he would have not had those pips. Oh my, yeah, it was a mess. It was a mess. Oh my gosh. So we get to the point, and again, I will not use the S word because I don't want us to get flagged on YouTube, but O'Brien flips out at his family and Bashir again, and then he goes to a cargo bay and he pulls a phaser out of I love a classic Foley thing is that what is obviously a plastic case, he flips the top of it, when it folds down, it makes a noise. And he pulls out a phaser and he's going to point it at his own face for the purpose of what you would expect him to do. And O'Brien, and then Bashir shows up. He's able to talk him down from it, and it's then that we realize we see his final correction flashback, which was just before the end of when the correction ended and he snapped back to normal life. That he and HR got in a big argument because he thought HR was smuggling food for himself, and O'Brien kills him, unfortunately. Hopefully that doesn't get us flagged.
I feel like there's a big continuity gap in that scene where Bashir finds him in the cargo hold.
Yeah.
O'Brien wasn't wearing a damn com badge. How'd he find him?
Oh, you're right.
He was relieved of duty.
Right. Yeah, you're right, because when he storms out of Cisco's office, he snaps at Dax. Then he gets in the turbo lift and he flings fling his badge. So that's good. That's a great question.
Life sign scanner.
Yeah.
It is Bashir using medical equipment for ways that it probably shouldn't be. So being able to find people with his
he could have simply guessed maybe everybody's got a chip, like I'm sure we'll all end up with a chip eventually, so the government can keep track of us. And you're right. That's a very convenient. And then again, it makes me think like this was a slush script, and whoever was the story editor just didn't catch it, which is but that's good. So in the final analysis, O'Brien has to kind of he did in his correction, he found out that HR was keeping extra food, but then he killed him because he thought he was holding out, but he really wasn't. And so O'Brien has to live with this, blah, blah, blah. So he comes out of it, and Bashir convinces him, hey, O'Brien confesses the whole thing about the cellmate, and yada yada yada, talks him down. And so they're having a walk and talk for the final scene of the episode, where O'Brien's like, well, there's not really anything we can do, which again, this was kicked off with, well, all of his memories are real and there's no way to remove them unless we, remove all his memories, which we can't do. But in this, Bashir, and it was funny, I don't know why this didn't come up later. Maybe Bashir kept researching, but he said, here, you can take a shot of this, and it's like insulin, right? Like, it's not a cure, but it'll keep you from having particular symptoms. I guess that's not a great diabetes analogy. You know what I'm talking about? Like, I can take ibuprofen because my back hurts because my back is screwed up, and it'll feel good for a while, but it's not a cure, but it'll abate the symptoms for a while. So
I would more make it akin to like an antidepressant was more what it seemed like.
That absolutely correct. Yeah, so it's me taking Prozac or whatever it is, which I don't take Prozac, but for people who need to take it, I hope that you're taking it, and I hope it is helping you. But
taking it.
yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, have you ever met somebody who is
Yes.
kind of off their meds?
Who's
Yes.
on meds and
Yes.
who's supposed to be on meds and off of them?
Yeah, I can think of
Yes.
some very specific examples that I will not bring up of people that we all know.
We shall not point names or name fingers.
Yes,
but
exactly. Yeah, Peter knows exactly who I'm talking about. So so in the final analysis, O'Brien just has to kind of learn to live with it, and you see him go back and embrace his family, and I guess that's kind of the best, the thing that's the best kind of dramatic turn of the episode. But I got grievances, but you know what, before jumping back to talk about some fun facts, let's at least each do a personal wrap up and give a rating. I'll go last, so LeRon, as our guest, you can go first.
Okay. Okay. So I've done 3 now. This is my 3rd episode with you guys doing this.
I
2.
I think it might be 3. If I'm forgetting, I apologize.
Oh, maybe I'm confusing my back and forth with Super Friends Unite as well. Maybe that's what it is.
Okay.
But okay, so I think I universally said that like TNG is like my kind of like the series that bore me as far as Star Trek goes.
Same.
DS9. Okay, so Berman era Star Trek kind of had the same thing. You saw it from TNG to DS9 to Voyager to Enterprise and stuff like that. They had these things where you have these times where it's like, oh, this is Star Trek, and then there's like, oh, this is drama, stuff like that.
Right.
This is one of those melodrama episodes that actually, like hits a mark because like it talks about PTSD, it talks about like wrongful convictions, things of that nature and stuff like that. And also it balances out like it balances out this whole thing where it doesn't wind up feeling like a boring episode because like like we're actually seeing like from the flashbacks what he went through. We're seeing from the people around him what's going on, stuff like that. This is a hallmark episode for like for how people deal with trauma and stuff like that. So like in my personal opinion, like even though like this is not like the quintessential DS9 episode because in season 4, like we had the conflict with Klingons going on, Cardassian, Cardassia's acting a fool, and and all this stuff. The Dominion's like, oh well, we're about to infiltrate Earth in a few more episodes.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. All these things are building. So
everything's about to go down, but O'Brien has to suffer first.
Yeah. Right. First things first. I'm the realist. There you go.
So I would actually give this episode an 8 out of 10. Like this is actually a really good episode. I typically. DS9 is one of the series that like if I'm watching front to back, like I don't skip episodes, like there's episodes of Voyager where I'm like, okay, I do not need to watch this one, stuff like that,
and very different shows in that regard. I totally agree.
Yeah, and everybody who's died in golden age, like Trekkie fan, like they're usually TNG and Voyager for whatever reason always seems to be like rated higher than like DS9 and Enterprise and stuff like that, which I'm like, you guys are. I'm not going to diagnose you guys, but
I hear you. And look at the only 2 shows that ever made it onto physical media in HD. It's TNG and TOS. So you're right. Everyone else is pretty much the redheaded stepchild. Though I think Enterprise did get an HD release. But
because it was filmed in HD, so
it was filmed in HD. Yeah,
but it's only those 2. You know what I mean? So everybody else is really relegated to that. So okay, 8 out of 10. Peter.
I would probably give this one also like a 7.58 out of 10. I really liked how it addressed the PTSD. I did like when Cisco gave the I forget the alien race, but gave them like a what for of like, you shouldn't have been doing this, you dumbass.
Is it a Agrathi or a Grath?
Yeah, it was the Agrathi or something.
Yeah, there you go.
But it was just one of those like, hey, it's Cisco standing up for one of his crewmen. That's great. Doesn't happen enough in other places, but that's good. So that was good, and then obviously the whole crew trying to come together to help O'Brien, and you really saw how that like that really deep abiding friendship between Bashir and O'Brien was really what helped pull him out of it. Like it wasn't his family. His family was there, but he thought that he was a danger to his family, and so he didn't want that wasn't the yank that got him out of there. So he needed a person who he was not responsible for to come and pull him out of that dark place.
Yeah.
So I thought that it was a really, as much as we might give him shit for being able to find him, I think it was a really, really good scene between Bashir and O'Brien where he's able to do that. And then you see through like the hallucination of Ichar where you can see that moment where Miles finally is like, I can let this go.
Right.
I'm still suffering from the side effects, but I can let this go, or I can begin to let this go.
Right. And in typical TV fashion, it's never mentioned again.
Of course not, but yeah.
It's his television, and for me, you guys you kind of shamed me into bumping my rating up because while everything you said was great, and I would definitely, that did definitely bump up my rating by a couple of points. The whole really first half of the episode, the premise, and then the fact that they didn't really do anything like that's an act of war. You abducted one of our people and you basically mutilated their brain. And they're just like, no, we're good. Nope, no big deal. That really gave me the red ass. So that really overwhelmed what I would say the kind of the accomplishments of the narrative, because you're right, they absolutely did. And again, we're living in a time, if you've seen the Thunderbolts or the New Avengers, which is the current MCU release, that movie has everything to do with heroes suffering from PTSD and dealing with their past and trying to move forward. And it's a wonderful movie. If you haven't seen it, I would imagine most people listening to the sound of my voice have probably seen that movie or are planning to, so I won't say anything more about it. We
Not yet, but soon.
We did a huge spoiler cast about it over on our main show, which was out last week. But at any rate, it really, just like I said, it pulled me out of it, that it was so like, okay, well, this is what happens, and we're just kind of gonna let it slide, because particularly in reference to popping over to some of the notes I have on this that came from Memory Alpha, of which I now have my own page. Go look up Charlie Carden on Memory Alpha. This was
we're just not gonna get past it.
Not gonna happen. Not this episode anyway, since I just found out about it this morning. That this was addressed in another series, and they did it in a totally different way. So I gave it a 7 out of 10, bumped up from a 5 out of 10, because I was really annoyed by that. But anyway, let me circle back. So a couple of facts about this. The episode shares a similar premise to The Inner Light, where Picard experiences a lifetime in a short period. And this is what I thought was the case. Both episodes feature actress Margot Rose, who was Picard's wife in that segment. And she was the green-faced alien who was one of the
Agrati jailer,
the psychic jailers. So also same premise of putting convicted criminals through a virtual reality prison. Was over decades of imprisonment in a few hours, was wrapped in an Outer Limits episode called The Sentence. I've never really watched The Outer Limits. I'm aware of it. I know it was a show back in the day, and then there was one in the 90s, which I could tell because it aired it said 4 months after this episode. So, but the one where I really have rubbed is the fact that this, what I feel like is almost exactly the same, was done in a very early episode of Star Trek Voyager, the season 1 episode Ex Post Facto. Tom, who was wearing red, and the pilot, we were just talking about pilots, standing in for O'Brien. Paris has to experience the final memories of a man he was convicted in killing on a regular basis, like, it was like a 12-hour period or something. He had to relive it, and Janeway wasn't like, okay, well, I guess that's what you're gonna have to do, and they just left. She was like, she put Tuvok on it and was like, nope, we don't believe our guy did this, which is weird because it was early in the series and Tom was a convicted felon, so
convict.
I'm glad that they decided to give him a shot, because in the end of it, he was framed. But they actually pursued getting it redone, where, they were like, well, there's nothing we can do, and I guess he's going to be just fine or whatever. So I guess that really kind of annoyed me, that I feel like they didn't really do anything to
it annoyed
kind
me
of retribution. Too. Yeah,
it annoyed me too. It also, I don't know, Starfleet gets on my damn nerves sometimes, in all seriousness, but also I think about it in the same way. I'm a veteran for the United States military and stuff like that. And there are a lot of times where if something happened, depending on your pay grade, how high or low, how high up the chain or how low you were, the military will leave your ass to dry.
Yeah.
It will leave you out there, and like, so this always pisses me off, in the fact that like Roddenberry created the mythos that Starfleet is not a military organization, but it had the military structure, and
Right.
it repeats all the same things that modern military does right now. I'm like, we're in the 23rd, 24th, now 25th century of Star Trek, so like that, and you're telling me like I'm not saying like everybody's worth going to bat for, but like, there's been situations where like like the slightest thing happens to a Romulan ambassador, on a
Right.
Federation planet, and the whole fleet's coming.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So yeah. So in the final analysis, so we'll wrap it up. Any final thoughts, Peter? You're the last one. Any final thoughts before we move along?
No, I don't think I have anything else to add on it.
All right. Well, we will be back in our next episode with another random sode, which I'll keep it a secret because I don't necessarily remember what it is. I think I know what it is, and we may or may not have a guest, so we kind of went back and forth about that. But you'll have to tune in to find out. But with that, we do move right along to talking about part 2 of the 7th season of Star Trek: The Next Generation. And based on our comments from last time, we're kind of sliding into a little bit of what we consider to be kind of a creative lull, a kind of like, we need to stop. Pretty soon we got to stop at the gas station because we're getting below the slash of great story ideas. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. So we're going to talk about a handful of episodes. I will jump in. Actually, no. Let me ask you, LeRon, and refresh my memory. Did you watch these when they initially aired in 1993? Were you a fan back then?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
Wait.
gotcha.
Let me see. November '93. Actually, okay. So funny enough, like, I had just enlisted in the military at the time, so I wasn't able to catch every single one of season 7's episodes. When they aired. But I was able to catch up. I was able to catch up by the time like All Good Things came out.
Okay, very good. So by
And
the
as a
end
matter
of
of
the
fact,
season, you were.
yeah.
By
As
the
a matter
end
of fact,
season,
it was a big deal too. Like, I mean, like, that's when I found out that there was a lot of Trekkies in like the unit I was in, because like
Yeah,
when
that's
when
awesome.
All Good Things premiered,
Yeah.
like the guys like found a way to secure the cafeteria and get
You
two
have a watch
TVs in
party.
there.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Oh
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
where were you stationed? Stateside, or you were?
Let me see. All Good Things aired. I was stateside. Yeah. So
Yeah.
we were in Norfolk at the time.
Oh,
Stuff like
Norfolk,
that. Yeah.
gotcha. Yeah, May
Yeah.
of '94. Very good. That actually, and we'll get there, but that actually aired the weekend that I graduated from high school. So I'm probably about a year younger than you, a year or two.
Okay.
And the first episode of TNG aired the month after I started 6th grade. So my middle school and high school years ran the length of TNG. Isn't that so weird?
Yeah. Yeah. And
And,
Counter Farpoint, I was in 7th
yeah.
grade. Yeah.
And Peter was 3 years old. So we need to belabor that.
Yeah, I turned 3 after All Good Things came out.
Oh my gosh, how funny. But anyway, all right, well, let's get rolling. Episode 7 of the season is Dark Page. Les Landau doing the directing, from script by Hilary J. Batter. From November of '93, a psychic breakdown puts Lwaxana Troi in a coma, and Deanna works to save her life. This episode most notably featured a very young Kristen Dunst, our own Mary Jane Watson from the Tobey Spider-Man movies, and a lot of other great stuff, playing the little girl Hedril of this race, whose name I am forgetting. But yeah, it kicks off with Lwaxana as in her ambassadorial role, helping a new race, getting ready to apply to be part of the Federation. And this race they're 100% telepaths. They don't really talk very often or at all, actually, so she's teaching them to speak. But in doing this, it unlocks a repressed memory. And the repressed memory, as we go all the way through this, turns out that Deanna had an older sister named Hestrel who died in a drowning accident. And obviously the memory's so traumatic that Lwaxana suppressed this within her own mind. Deanna never found out about it. Deanna's father subsequently passed along, so there was no chance of it coming out that way. And she erased basically any reference to the existence of this child. But it was the Hedril girl, the Kirsten Dunst, at least to Lwaxana, looked enough like the kid, which in the flashback memories, Kestra and Hedril don't look anything alike, but you can understand. It was one of the, I think the final straw was Lwaxana was, hanging out with Hedril in the Arboretum, and she slips and falls in a puddle, and then it brings all the memories flooding back, and she passes out.
Oh yeah.
So we do get to see for the first time a representation of Ian Andrew. That was Troy's late father. Keep in mind he did take he did take his wife's surname, which is very progressive. We have couples friends that they have a hyphenated of each of their last names, which I think it's very progressive. I like that. I think they found a good match in this actor. I think the guy looks quite a bit like Marina Sirtis, so I thought that was great. But it also gave us a kind of another weird mutation of what the monster maroon turned into in the 21st century. Because Deanna was born, I'm gonna pull numbers out of the head, in the late 2330s, I think.
Somewhere in there, yeah.
And the monster maroon survived until about the year 2350, and in the early 2340s is when Yesterday's Enterprise happened. So by that time they had ditched like
Belt.
the shirt underneath changed and the belt was gone. And by the very end, thanks to a costuming error, the TNG badge shows up on it in the recording of Jack Crusher that Wesley watches, which would have been in like 2348 or 49. So this is and then when you saw Picard and his friends in the Tapestry episode, it still had the belt, but the shirt was different. So I don't know. It was probably one of those like, hey, we need to have a monster maroon, so let's pull it off the rack. And it's not the same, but so we'll explain it as a difference. Whatever. Anyway, I'm down a rabbit hole. Please stop me. The episode in general, for character development of Loxana Troy, who is definitely a good episodes, bad episodes, I thought it was okay. I thought it was kind of a cool story that revealed something. It was a little dramatic, it was a little soap opera, but you know what, I enjoyed the ride just because I enjoyed the character of Loxana Troy, and I like Majel Barrett's portrayal, and I like Marina, and I like her portrayal of Troy, so I thought it was really well handled. So that's my take. LeRon, what about you?
Hey, Secret Friends Unite, let me tell you about Zencastr. We use them for our show, and now they're supporting us. Zencastr is now the all-in-one solution making podcasting easy. It's the ultimate web-based podcasting solution. Provides high-quality audio and video podcast production and hosting. With a full suite of professional tools, podcasters can seamlessly record, produce, and publish studio-quality content, all from one dashboard. Being a creator has never been easier. And we chose Zencastr because of the ease of use, high quality output, and it makes it super easy for our guests to come on. We had multiple solutions we tried before, and Zencastr has just been the best fit for us. Why Zencastr? It's now super easy to record a podcast with Zencastr. Log in using your browser and start recording a high-quality podcast right away. Record studio-quality sounds and up to 4K video with your guests. Feel a sense of zen knowing Zencastr's multi-layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality, even if the connection is unstable. Have you ever worried what you sound like? Zencastr's post-production process makes you sound buttery smooth. It automatically removes those ums and ahs in your recording. It removes those awkward pauses in conversation too. Set the right podcast loudness and levels while reducing background noise with a click of a button. So if you're interested in making an easy, high-quality podcast just with the click of a browser button, go to zencastr.com/pricing and use my code SFU1. You'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. I want you to have the same easy experiences I do for all my podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. Now back to the show.
Actually, yeah, I actually like this episode. It was one of the few times that Loxana did not feel like a character. Because of course, the next time we see her is on DS9, and of course she's back to being the Loxana and stuff like that, so she gets that connection with Odo and stuff like that, but this is one of the first times that we've seen Loxana not being all super amorous to Jean-Luc and all this stuff,
Right.
it was like for his episode she was out there I have a job to do and stuff like that, and then of course in the process of doing this job, a horrible trauma overcomes her to the point where it looks like we might not ever see his character again and stuff like that. I thought it was a good episode. Dramatic, which that era of Star Trek can be, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing because I'm starting to understand why a lot of people look at New Trek now and it's why can't it be more like that? But I'm no, more like that you're gonna be pissed because it's where's all the action at? Because I'm sorry, I think we've all been affected by Abrams like restyling of Star Trek now, to where like we can't go back to the Berman era of Star Trek anymore.
It's bygone. Yeah, absolutely. Just like the Roddenberry era of TOS was gone by the time they did this. It was just it was just there was a lot of differences in tone.
Yeah, but with Dark Page, like powerhouse performances by Majel Barrett, Marina Sirtis. I've always felt like, and I've never really liked the Troy. I did not start liking Deanna Troi until the movies. I did not really start liking her. I take that back. Actually, the episode where they hit that quantum filament and busted up the Enterprise, and Ro was like challenging her. Disaster. There you go. Yeah. That was the first episode that made me take notice of Deanna, and stuff like that, and of course when Jellicoe slammed her and put her and made her wear a uniform, I was like, finally.
It absolutely changed the game. Yeah. And she gets in that later in the season is when she finally decides to really take that next step. That'll be fun. Peter, your thoughts?
Yeah.
I am not the biggest Loxana Troy fan, as everyone who's listened to this show knows. It's not that I hate the character, just she drives me up a wall.
That's the point. I think she's supposed to.
She's supposed to. Like I enjoy her most of the time, but at the same time, just like But so this was a very different take. Well, not a different take, but a different facet of Loxana's character. And so in that sense, it was interesting in the way that's like, she's less boisterous, she's less all of this thing, and she's wearing dark, and you have Mr. Hom who's worried about her.
Right.
Which is like you don't really see him, but like it gets mentioned a couple times, like Mr. Hom is upset. And, that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
But it's also interesting how they explore the relationship between Loxana and Deanna in a different way, where Deanna's the one who actually has to help Loxana. It isn't a Deanna having to go, "Mother, I'm an adult," like that, which is usually what happens when Loxana's on the ship. Is like Deanna and then other people going, "Mrs. Troy, everyone on the Enterprise are adults. Please stop."
I don't even think she calls Worf Mr. Woof in this one.
She doesn't know.
Yeah, that's a bummer. Yeah, so you're right. It's definitely more of an edge, and they pitch her up to be.
But it's kind of a good thing. It's a good thing that they do, and there's some good character growth there.
Yeah,
and also giving Deanna Troi some agency.
Yeah,
particularly in regards to her mother, which was something that they hadn't really done much.
Right.
Where she's not fighting her mother, she's trying to help, and she is the one who has she has the high ground, as it were.
You underestimate my power. Oh my goodness. All right, well, Peter, next one's yours.
All right. Episode 8 is Attached, directed by Jonathan Frakes, written by Nick Sagan, aired on November 8th, 93. Reclusive aliens imprison Picard and Dr. Crusher on charges of espionage.
Well, that's what happened with O'Brien. Come on.
So they do
something about it, though.
They do. So they're implanted with these experimental devices that link their minds and physiologies in a way so they can hear each other's thoughts and get ill if they're too far apart. And then
so codependent.
Yeah, and then we also get them to express the will they won't they thing that's been kind of going on through most of the show. So
oh my god. So LeRon, you go first.
Okay, I've always liked the Picard Crusher dynamic. Like we didn't know there was a real dynamic until the Naked Now happened. But
which was like episode 2.
Yeah,
it was episode 2.
Yeah. I mean, it was like
yeah. So like I like seeing how they like progressed. Over the like we started learning that Jean-Luc was very like I think the word was, because they used it in a sentence a while back when he was dating a member of the crew. Like, he's a very private person and all this stuff.
Oh,
like Jean-Luc was always standoffish with the crew, but it seemed like he was more standoffish with the bridge crew or the command crew than he was
people he worked with every day. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so like that. So like it was great to finally have seen that. Like the whole thing. Even though I feel like Picard, Jean-Luc is breaking bro code, but that's a story for another time.
Right. Yeah. Because his best friend who's been dead for 25 years. Oh, well.
Yeah. So but wait, didn't Ben Picard like introduced
Yeah,
Beverly Howard too?
he was
Yeah.
he was the
Yep.
wingman that
Yeah.
introduced.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
But he was, he had these feelings that he, kind of pushed him deep down inside, which you're not
Yeah.
supposed to do. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, but he even says in the episode, well, she's like, why didn't you ever let me know? And he's like, well, you were married to my best friend, and after he died, I just felt so guilty because he was, blah, blah, blah. He wasn't involved, but he was there, and they never really revealed what it was, but it was judged on. You remember when Wesley was taking his Starfleet exam in season 1, and the psych test was he had to make a decision. You can save one person, but another person's in peril, and you can't save them both. The one person in that scenario could save themselves, but they were too freaked out, and so he saved the person he could. And they made it sound like that's what happened with Jack Crusher, Jack Crusher the first. So it was, but yeah, and Picard was Wesley in that situation, so he saved the other person, and Jack died.
Ultimately with Attached, I thought it was an okay episode. It was a fair episode. I mean, it was definitely one of those ones, like if I forgot it was on, I would wind up watching it, but as soon as I see, oh, it's Attached, I'll skip.
Yeah, I mean, in this modern era, it's way too easy to skip because you're picking the episodes instead of just turning the TV on and
best of both worlds. It is not.
Yeah, you can just pick that one up again. Peter, your thoughts?
I think that there's some fun stuff in this episode. The interaction between Crusher and Picard is kind of funny because there's how did you think of that? I was just wondering if you were still listening. They never really tell you exactly what everything is. So
something super dirty, like, hey, I like the way your ass looks in that outfit.
Or even if it's not that, it's just like Picard starts thinking about like fart jokes or something. Why? Exactly. Like you just like to start thinking about like what kind of crap are they pulling on each other?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that was fun. And then they have that chuckle fest when they finally get rescued, and they're like,
and Riker's so confused.
He's like, what the hell's going on? I don't. It's making me uncomfortable. Yeah.
The one thing that I thought was quite funny was the whole bit with the Kess and the Prit, where it's like they hate each other so much that they're like, they're the cause, and then the one group is like, we're gonna have a special command center here on the Enterprise.
Oh my god!
And
they just all the shitty props that
they have like all their crappy stuff, and you just have like Riker and Worf looking at it. It's like, oh my gosh, these guys are idiots. And then at a certain point, they just cross the line of just like, you guys are just.
You are out of here, and
you are just assholes. Just clear the room, get your stuff, get out. And so like as kind of dorky as that side of the story is, I enjoy the fact that they annoy Worf. He gets pissed, and then they continue to dig their own grave, as it were, to the point where then Riker's just like, shut up, get out, and then he beams, and then he ends up beaming both of them into the conference room. He's like, you're gonna sit here and talk, we don't sit. Well, fine, we're gonna stand here and you're gonna argue and figure this out, and then if you don't, I'm gonna just stand and like stare at you until you figure this out. Which was just that whole side of the story was like tangentially connected to everything else, but it was quite funny to me.
It's like Alec Baldwin's character of Jack Donaghy on 30 Rock. He said, key to any negotiation, never talk first, and then you just stare. The other person will break down because you make them so uncomfortable. Fun fact: Nick Sagan, I believe, son of the famous Carl Sagan. Billions and billions of stars, if I'm not mistaken. So kind of like having Adam Nimoy direct that episode last season. So, all right. Well, we'll move on to an episode that is defined skippable to me. That'd be episode 9, Forces of Nature. Director is Robert Lederman. Naren Shankar did the writing, and I hate to put Naren Shankar down because he's a staff writer and did a lot of great stuff, but they can't all be winners. From November of 93, a pair of scientists show that warp drive is harming the fabric of space, but only in their crappy little sector, while the Enterprise investigates a Federation ship's disappearance, which is like a very stock, we got to go help a ship in danger. I mean, that's always...
And also the Ferengi are in danger for some reason, but they don't care.
Yeah, or the Uridians, or the Cardassians, or blah, 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 blah. And then we have a subplot that's all about Data's cat, and, and Geordi being like, well, your cat could use some training. I got to tell you, we have 3 cats. They're relatively well behaved. And if cats are trainable, I'm going to have to disagree with Jordy on this one. You know, and again, maybe by the 24th century, they've mapped the feline brain and they can figure out different things about it. I don't think cats are trainable. I think dogs are trainable, and that's what people really love about them. But I think if you're not a cat person, your experience could largely be rooted in the fact that you have a cat who's an asshole, and that absolutely happens. Our cats are not. Our cats are very affectionate and stuff. They might fight with each other, but generally they're very well behaved. So, but yeah, that's a plot line that it's like I feel like they're really stretching for a B story here, and it doesn't land. I don't know. So, you know, and again at the end of it with the holes in space time, or the warp damage that's being done, that is carried forward throughout the rest of the series, because there's this warp. There's like, well, a ship can't exceed warp 5 unless it's an emergency, which obviously brings a lot of stuff to a screeching halt. Even though warp 5 is pretty close to the cruising speed of most Starfleet ships, which is like 6 or 6.5. I think if you look at the tech manual, I mean, I'm sure if Larry Nemechek was here, he could tell us, but that's my guess, right? So it's not,
it's right around
like
the Galaxy class is warp 6.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the everyday we're driving down. Like if you get on the highway and set the cruise control, you would set it at warp 6.5. You know, if you were just like, okay, I'm going somewhere, but that's my normal speed.
I think the main problem with that, with the explanation, the main problem with the explanation, not saying there's anything wrong with your explanation, the problem is that that Star Trek established, even way back in the TOS era, Star Trek established that warp drive is like the way to go. So
Right.
you know, like we're always sitting here thinking,
yeah.
you know, it was like I understand for the fact of this episode. I think the main thing that we were bitching about environmentally in '93 was punching holes in the ozone, and I'm pretty sure that's what this was paralleling.
That's
You know,
exactly
yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah. So, but the problem is like you take one of the best things about technology in that time frame, and you hamstrung it. You know,
Yeah.
like that was going to give you so many different, like, you know, like problems with plot, you know, later, because
right. Like, oh, we can't get there. But then,
first of all, why is the Enterprise out there? Why is the Enterprise out there investigating a Federation ship's disappearance? There's Starfleet. Well, actually, post Wolf 357, I would have said Starfleet is pretty big. Like there shouldn't be just one ship in the sector, but it seems like every Star Trek movie, like, you know, like we're the only ship in the sector,
and they're going to have a whole lot less ships in the sector if they can't get around as fast.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. But yeah, you're right. I didn't give a lot of thought to the fact that this was a direct poke at the whole, you know. And again, the ozone layer, you don't hear a lot about it anymore, though we have a lot of other climate problems, things that are a little bit more critical, like, you know, wildfires and nonstop hurricanes and all this sort of stuff. But anywed I
do think this episode, though, because like for people who do not know, this is the episode that actually made design for like starships. This changed like this changed the whole rule book about how with the foldable nacelles and all that stuff and stuff like that. You know, like we had the Prometheus. Oh my god, beautiful ship. You know,
right? Yeah. So so they really did. They changed, and maybe it's even just they changed. You know, the front of the nacelle, which was just this rounded red hub, turned into, you know, kind of like a little octagon or like a little you know, kind of diamond slab formation. So
stuff,
so you know, maybe that's ultimately because again, the Intrepid class is the only ship that's really featured that has the variable geometry nacelles, which is I think what they called it. And then eventually this problem just never after TNG, this never gets mentioned again. But they do, you know, you'll hear in Picard's logs throughout the rest of the season, we've been authorized to exceed warp speed limitations for the duration of this mission. Yeah, it comes up. So you know,
actually,
at least
the Defiant. They mentioned something about the Defiance design that it was designed to get around that because the nacelles were on the hull of the ship and stuff like that.
So the ship was just one big So so eventually even they figured out that, you know, this was a hamstringer and we need to get away from it. So based on that, and then based on the B story about the trainability of a cat, this one's a dud for me. Just kind of going nowhere. I don't know. Any other thoughts, Peter?
It's not really my favorite either. It was interesting to me how they had the activists be so willing to like violently prove their point that they're not only hamstringing, like they're actually sabotaging ships, but then one of them is willing to go blow herself up to make
which she does. Yes, exactly.
Which she does.
Yeah, it's not
and
cool.
So it's like there's part of me that's like, that's interesting because there are a lot of extremists out there.
Absolutely.
But it's also like, if you're trying to make a point that this is a bad thing, I don't think having your biggest proponent go and blow herself up like an
Is really
absolute
gonna
crazy person is the best
propel
way
the
to go.
cause. Yeah.
Yeah, like they were like enough's enough. Like if you're not gonna listen to me when I was trying to like make it like simple for you, like I'm gonna have to,
And
life imitates art imitates life.
Yeah, no,
Precisely.
it makes sense in the sense like that's the perception of how things work, but it's just one of those like I don't know if that's necessarily the case for the Federation if you're able to stick your logs in there in a way that made sense, because even like you had Data and Geordi who are looking at things,
Yeah.
and they're pretty on top of it. So
Yeah.
This just shows how flawed, if not humanity, if just like all the civilized like civilizations are in that even in that time period and stuff like that.
Right.
Like the Romulans ignored the fact that their damn sun was going supernova.
Yeah.
well, that's a sore issue.
And then they didn't really, they needed the Federation to bail them out, and when the Federation didn't bail them out, they were stuck. But yes, that's a bird of a different feather. So all right, let's keep the ball moving. Peter, number 10 is yours.
All right, episode 10, Inheritance, directed by Robert Schreier, story by Dan Kopel, teleplay by Dan Kopel and Renee Echeverria, aired November 22nd of 93. Data encounters a woman claiming to be his mother, while the Enterprise assists an alien planet in restabilizing their planet's core, which is not important to the story at all. But
And then you guys wondered why I said TNG is like my most boring series.
Well,
to be fair, this is season 7.
Yeah, exactly to your point. We've reached the apex of their like, let's get a B story, and it's just some mumbo jumbo bullshit. They're like, I gotta train my cat. I gotta do it. The only part it does come into prominence, but not in it does have something to do that affects the plot, but it's way small. So and that's in the fact that so this woman says, I was married to Dr. Sung, and I was his compatriot in creating androids and stuff, and blah blah blah. And then Data investigates it, and he finally determines that she's telling the truth, because otherwise it could just be, but again, why would she be lying about it? But he needs to know because he's very analytical, because he's an android. So they go through this, and he figures out that she really was married to him and all this different stuff, but he starts to have his suspicions about it, which are confirmed in the only part of the planet core thing. When she falls down and breaks her arm, she's an android. But she, I love the rapid fire. So that happens obviously at a commercial break, probably between acts like 5 and 6. And so they come back, and she's lying on a bio bed. They put her back together. And then Geordi has this techno babble. He's going to explain everything at once. Oh, she's been programmed to put out this bioelectric field that makes her seem human. And then this is where they threw in one that I was like, I saw what you did there. She's got a program that makes her appear to age just like Data, which had never been mentioned before in 7 years of the show.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously Brent Spiner who's a lovely guy, by the way, and I've met him several times on the cruise and at cons and stuff. Very, very funny guy, but he ages like anybody else. So there's only so much they can do. And it's really evident at the end of the season, where they're recreating scenes from before the show started in All Good Things, where he's aged in 7 years like anybody else does. And then, they find different ways to get around that as the character continues to go on. But this is the first time that they mention, but they just kind of slide it in. It's kind of sliding into home. You know what I mean? So when I saw it in the first place, I was like, even I was 17 when I saw this episode for the first time. And I was like, that's pretty convenient that they just decided to announce that he's got an aging program. And that's why, his hair. And it's funny, there was one when he met Dr. Bashir last season on the show, and Bashir's asking him some, Dick and Jane questions about, does your hair grow? And he says, I can, but I've never done it. But in season 2, Brent Spiner almost had a mullet because his hair was a lot longer in the back. And then the next season it wasn't. So he does still change his hairstyle. So there's a lot of inconsistencies about Data in general that they try to slide it into this episode. But first of all, I think it's a fine story, but it's also another great example of something that never, ever, ever gets mentioned ever again. Granted, we're at the end of the series, and it wouldn't necessarily make any sense that it would get worked into the movies at all, but yeah, it never gets mentioned again that he had a mother. We even get Dr. Sung back, because Dr. Sung had a biological son that we meet in Picard, and then he dies, and
off screen,
and then his personality gets married to Data's personality, gets married to Laura's personality, gets married to B4's personality, into Super Data that we get in season 3 of Picard, and
but no mention of his mother,
and she never comes up again. So it's a throwaway episode, you know, and it's another one of those, like, I don't know how to feel about it, but it did give us that absolutely out of nowhere Data appears to age, even though he's immortal, but he appears to age. So it's just like that alone. I was like, nah. I don't know. Ron, where do you stand with this one?
Oh God, this was another snooze fest episode for me. I mean, you know, it was nice. It was nice that the plot twist was that she was an android and stuff like that.
Right.
You know, like at least
instead of a Romulan spy or something.
Yes,
yeah. At least they kind of threw us a bone on that one. You know, like kind of kept it interesting. Like what the hell's going on, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like I said, there's more. I don't know. There's more misses than hits for me than in season 7.
Oh God, yes, absolutely.
Actually, if I'm being honest, there's more misses than hits in like the entire run of TNG.
Yeah, well, in the back half, probably after season 5.
Yeah, I want to say that because I wasn't here for when you did episodes 1 through 6, but the Gambit two-parter was great.
We loved it.
The Gambit two-parter, and wasn't that Robin Curtis?
It sure was. I'll tell you what. Hopefully you're still working with us when we get there. But when we finish doing all the episodes in segment 2 in the future, we're going to tackle all of the two-parters. So since you like that one, so much,
nice.
I'll see if we can. Yeah. So in segment 2, we'll just have a deep dive into just that two-parter.
Okay.
So we'll see about bringing you back for that one. I'm going to make a mental note. I'll put it in the schedule because I'm a nerd and I have a decade-long schedule for this show, assuming that we're still making it in 10 years. And I'm going to put your name down as a potential guest star. So
awesome.
I will remember that. So if you're still working with us, which I hope that you are,
I hope so too.
So Peter, thoughts here? I mean, you tipped it off by saying, "Oh, the B plot was meaningless."
It was absolutely pointless.
Yeah.
There was some interesting stuff with Data, learning about we got some interesting tidbits of Data running around nude in the colony originally because clothes are unnecessary. I don't have issues. So
like a toddler.
Yeah. So there were some fun things about Data that we learned. The holographic program of Dr. Soong was kind of fun because Dr. Soong shows up in holographic form multiple times randomly throughout TNG.
Right.
So that was kind of fun, but it's not one of those episodes that's like, I'm gonna go watch Inheritance.
Exactly.
It's not like it's an amazing episode. It's fine. I enjoy it, but it's not one of those things that's like, oh my gosh, this is one of the best episodes of TNG ever made.
Right. Especially since its Inheritance tends to kind of be a legacy of BS. Because the whole thing is the setup to just being a lie. So
yeah, and then also it's like we end up not telling her. It's like she gets to believe that she's a human for the rest of her existence. She has a termination date built into her program somewhere. It's
explained that the Picard android, which
I've always kind of thought was just a straight, like, clearly when they did the Picard one, that's clearly a harken back to this particular episode with how all that works without referencing it directly.
With Data being ostensibly immortal, even though he dies and comes back.
And so it's just sometimes the things that Star Trek has decided to do with the Soong type androids, TNG did it in a weird way sometimes, and then Picard did it like in ways that drove me nuts. So it's like sometimes the way that we address the things with the Soongs are just weird, and this isn't the weirdest thing that they've done, but it does sometimes have moments where it's like, okay,
exactly. All right, well, the next two are fantastic. I'll presuppose that.
Thank God.
I'll read. Thank God. I'll read number 11, which is Parallels, directed by Robert Weimer. Brandon Braga doing the writing, so you've got a big hitter. So we always hope that means it's going to be something great. It doesn't necessarily work out that way, but in this case, I think it did. From November of 93, Worf finds himself randomly shifting between alternate realities, the multiverse, that's very big in media these days, after winning a tournament and celebrating his birthday. This episode, it's a mixed bag. because number one, it does give us one of my favorite uniform variants, which I like to use myself. Fansets, who is friend of the show, makes these badges. Peter, I assume you're wearing one as well. But they did branch out into making the Future Imperfect badges, which is the delta with the bars behind it, and the color of the bars indicates the rank,
Your rank, yeah.
of the of the wearer. God, excuse me, which was translated into Discovery. They went to that 100%, which I didn't like. But this episode takes that badge and it incorporates that with the pips, so somebody gets two representations of their rank, which I think is awesome. And Peter and I are doing a photo shoot later this summer, and I'm going to work that into my costume because I think that's really cool. But I digress. But we get a lot of different kind of Worfisms, which are cool. And again, it's a lower-ish stakes episode because at the end of the day, he doesn't save anybody from anything, and there wasn't all he had to do is pretty much save himself. But we do tee up, which goes through the rest of the series, this romance between Troy and Worf, which everybody hated. The actors hated it. The fans hated it. It was reviled. The only person who didn't pay any attention to it was Riker. He was like, okay. It didn't get to be an issue until the future alternate scenes in All Good Things with where they're trying to you see all of them as old people, and he's like, well, she died, and Riker is saying he died, and then it was a rift between Worf and I that was never patched up because he always felt that I didn't approve of them being together or whatever, and so it's like. It's a misnomer. I like everything else about that, and I love seeing different uniforms. We get the return of Will Wheaton as Wesley Crusher. He is the in the universe where All Good Things ended with Picard dying and Riker took over and Wesley stayed on. And he took Worf's job as Worf gets promoted to first officer, which was pretty cool. It's kind of a bummer for Data. Data gets passed over for absolutely everything. He's the only character who never gets a promotion. No, Beverly. Him and Beverly are the only people who never get promoted throughout the entirety of TNG, all the way through the end of the movies. Everybody gets a promotion except for Data, but Data's dead by that point. But no, he gets Worf leapfrogs over him, but I guess it works for the purpose of the episode. So low stakes, love the costuming stuff. Nice to see Wesley one more time because I'm not a Wesley basher. I liked it. I was a fan. LeRon.
Parallels is actually good. I've always liked episodes like this in Star Trek, and like either time travel or like some type of dimensional bending, or like stuff like this. So I've always loved this episode. I've always loved episodes like that. Parallels was actually a pretty decent episode. The rub was, of course, like the Troy Worf, because that hit me out of left field. As a matter of fact, this is one of the episodes I didn't see when it was live. So when I came back to it, I was like, huh? I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
I was like, when did this happen? Because like last I checked, in Gambit, they were like Riker and Troy were still hot and heavy. What happened? But so that was weird. I'm trying to think. If you I'm looking at the credits for the production of the show and stuff like that. Brendan Braga, never mind. When did Brendan Braga start writing for Star Trek?
I think right around this time. This might have been one of his early works. Yeah, it probably says, yeah. So if you navigate through the episode and you probably follow his hot link, it probably says, all right, so let me click it. Well, we'll pause for station identification. Career, blah blah blah. Started out as an intern on TNG in 1990. And then worked his way up. His credits on that series include a number of popular episodes, including Cause and Effect, Frame of Mind, and Parallels. So those were kind of his top
Cause
three
and Effect,
for the series.
So he liked these mind bending episodes. So like,
yeah,
how do you screw the Riker Troy thing up?
Yeah, I don't know it. Yeah, you're right. I don't really know why he would have jumped in and put. Maybe it was one of those like, hey, you know what? We got an overview for the season, and we're gonna do this because it was this episode, and then it was the Eye of the Beholder episode, which I think is in our next segment, where Troy has a vision of. Remember the nacelle tube?
Yes.
She has and then they get together in that, but none of that really happens. And then they're going on a date in the last episode, but still don't kiss. And then we get to Generations, and there's no reference to it at all. So
Right,
it's such a misnomer. So, but it was an episode I thought was pretty enjoyable. Good for Brand Braga for this, and the other 2 episodes that were mentioned were great episodes. But
oh man, Frame of Mind is one of my all-time favorite TNG episodes.
Yeah, without a doubt. Peter.
I really enjoy Parallels. It was one of the earlier things in science fiction that I ever saw that had to do with alternate realities, in the sense that there was a multiverse. So not like this is distinct from the mirror universe.
Right.
So I liked this one. I always enjoy like the kind of the what ifs, like what if Wesley had stayed on the Enterprise? There's the one reality where Nurse Ogawa is Dr. Ogawa. There's the other and I think it's the same reality where Data has blue eyes. Like there's just like there's like little tiny details that are different.
Wrinkles. Yeah, Worf goes into his quarters and there's a different painting, and
painting's like different, or it's on a different wall, or like
Picard's
in the party and he's not, and
then he won the trophy, but then for first place, but then he got the trophy for 9th place, and then he didn't go at all. So he's just as he's bouncing through.
So it's just I really like how they how they had like those details that they were to be able to pull out to show the differences in the realities, where like at first it's subtle and it's barely noticeable, where you're just like something's weird, but I don't know what until you start to see like bigger things, like wait a minute, Data's got blue eyes, this doesn't make any sense, wait a minute, where's Dr. Crusher, where they start to like pull out the bigger changes. So I liked how it went along.
And we also have a dead engineer in this one, because Geordi dies.
Geordi dies,
but his visor is what causes the switch. But even in death, they plug it into something and flip a switch, and then we get the final reality, which is Worf in the red uniform with and he's the first officer.
And this is one of the episodes where I actually enjoy multiverse. I have kind of soured on the topic in recent memory because it's overused.
Very
but
true. Even the MCU knows that now.
But I really like how the alternate realities are used in this, because it is part of the story in an essential way.
Right.
Totally.
So it's not a gimmick. It's the whole purpose of this story.
It's what's driving.
So it's supposed to break your brain. That's why it's there.
Right. Cool. All right. Well, Peter, you get the next one is one of them that has somewhat of a checkered future. After this episode, but we can revisit that. But number 12 is yours.
Episode 12, The Pegasus, directed by our recently realived engineer LeVar Burton, written by Ronald D. Moore, aired on January 10th of 94. Riker's former captain boards the Enterprise to retrieve the USS Pegasus for undisclosed reasons. Picard investigates the circumstances of its loss and finds that there was a cover-up. Big surprise. Features Terry O'Quinn as Admiral Eric Pressman.
Fun fact, Terry O'Quinn, native to northern Michigan. I believe he's from Sault Ste. Marie.
Oh, wow.
Kind of cool.
Famously known for things like Lost.
Yes, absolutely. And other stuff. He was in The Walking Dead.
And lots of other stuff. He was in a lot of things, but...
Absolutely. So great episode. The cloud that hangs over an otherwise great episode is that this was used as a framework over 10 years later as what was billed as the finale of Star Trek Enterprise. Was
the episode which shall not be named.
Yes, because it was inserted within this episode's plot, which involves Riker's struggle to reveal the cover-up to Picard, because Picard slowly kind of unravels the fact that he doesn't have all the facts throughout this organization, which this episode, this investigation, which also they involve the Romulans. I love the Romulan commander involved in this, and it's funny, this same actor shows up in Generations as a guy taking Worf's place at Tactical. And he has like one line like, Captain, Captain, a Klingon word disappeared. But in this, he is your
the same guy.
He is your ultimate PR fake ass corporate HR dude, like, oh, Captain, it's so nice to meet you. May I ask why you are currently in this sector? That is fascinating. Well, we would be happy to, and then they get stuck in the ship, and he's like,
something seems to have happened. Oh no,
it
how
looks
sad.
It looks like you're stuck in the
yeah,
asteroid. We would be happy to beam out. You would be our guest, and then after a short stay, we would just let you on your way. Like the guy's just but he's just this total phone. And you figure he turns the screen off, and then he starts barking at his subordinates. Motherfucker! He starts screaming at people. You know what I mean? But I absolutely loved it. It's unfortunate that
so much camp.
Ron Moore's
Romulans are known for it. So
beautiful episode gets tainted by making it a bit the framing device for the horrible finale of Enterprise. It's funny looking. I was talking about plans we have for the future. I have labeled as one of ours, because we're going to cover the two-parter that ended that I call Enterprise's real finale, which is the 2 episodes that precede that finale, because it was a great two-parter that I felt left the series in a great place. That they could have tacked on the very last scene of Archer walking out on the stage and signing the concordance that started the Federation. They could have ended it that way, but I digress. Great episode, great development for Riker, who's my favorite Star Trek character. How I was young and dumb, and we get a bad admiral or a bad faith admiral, however it is you want to describe it, which is a trope. I understand that, but Terry O'Quinn is great. He throws his weight around. It doesn't ultimately work out because he tries to take command of the ship. And is this the one where Worf just crosses his arms when he does this?
Yes.
When he orders him to do something.
Or if you need to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Bruh. That ain't happening.
The way that Michael Dorn crosses his arms, scowls, and makes his eyes bigger to show he's angry. It's just like ooh, you got the full Worf effect going on.
You've gone full Worf. Oh my goodness. LeRon, thoughts?
I loved Pegasus. I loved it. It was one. Honestly, this is one of those episodes where I feel like more episodes in season 7 should have been
absolutely.
I loved Admiral Pressman. What I loved about this, because him, who's the female admiral?
Nechayev?
Nechayev.
Oh,
yeah,
well, Nechayev's, she's not in this episode, but Nechayev's around.
Yeah. Well,
TNG and DS9. So we this showed the politicking side of the Admiralty and stuff like that, and it actually showed these guys they got the bars under the pips now, they're up to something, you know. Right, yeah. Nobody's ever I'm an admiral, and we want to start a healthcare fund for the children of Zambleus 9. They want to do something good.
Yeah,
they're always up some dirty shit, and then they're trying to throw people under the bus so they don't get caught.
Yeah, Admiral Dougherty, which I actually loved Admiral Dougherty in Insurrection.
Yeah. It was great to see him get his comeuppance too in that movie as well. No doubt about it. Oh my god,
there's a change of heart immediately suffers.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, but I don't think we should. Yeah, exactly. Oh,
yeah,
my goodness.
But yeah, what I loved about Pegasus is it had your intrigue, it had your politicking, it had the Romulans. This was peak Star Trek: The Next Generation back then, in my opinion, because I feel like ultimately, and also there's been so many mutinies on board. I'm starting to think that Michael Burnham has gotten screwed, because there's been so many,
and they make a big deal out of it, and
at least every
mutiny. That's shocking. I'm like, really? You find that it seems to happen every 10th ship you hear about, you'd be like, we had a mutiny and blah blah blah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm starting to think that Michael Burnham got the bad end of the deal here.
Maybe she was
to
the
be
first
fair,
one.
At least in Pegasus, it was the captain who was being the douche. And so the mutiny was logical.
Yeah, it was a legit all right, well, this was we had to do this, but then most of those people all died anyway, so whoops. Yeah.
Whoops.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
guys.
Great episode. And again, they walk at the end of it, Riker surrenders himself, and he's sitting in the brig, and Picard comes in and says, yeah, your role in this will be investigated, and your record to date will factor out, and you'll probably be fine, but there's going to be some hard questions, but then you never hear anything about it. But he also doesn't. They don't offer him another command until the very end of the movies. So
I was about to say he still wound up getting the Titan. So
yeah, exactly. So I think it didn't hurt him that bad because he was just some young. He was just like a 22-year-old kid who was like,
actually,
oh, okay.
Actually, to think about it now, like it seems like Riker in the events that happened with the Pegasus is about the same age as Kirk was with the Farragut incident with the cloud monster.
It was exactly.
They were both helms. They were both helmsmen and everything.
They were in 20, 21, 22 years old. Don't it's anybody at that age doesn't know shit about shit. Everybody knows that. So yeah, you just be like, okay, well, I guess I got to do what I got to do.
Yeah, I feel like Kirk was a blueprint for Riker anyway.
And, I've always felt that as well. And let's not forget, this does give us in the cold open the beautiful Captain Picard Day, which the banner survives. And it ends up in Picard's man cave in the archives that we see in Picard season 1. So it does survive. All right. Our final episode is episode 13, Homeward. Directed by Alexander Singer, story by Spike Steingasser. That's a hell of a name. Teleplay by Naren Shankar from January of '94. A civilization doomed to extinction is saved by a Federation observer, Worf's human foster brother, Nikolai, in violation of the Prime Directive, forcing the Enterprise crew to actively determine their fate. And this says based on the material by William N. Stape, which I have absolutely no idea who that is, but I will look it up. But while I look that up, I will drop word that his foster brother is played by veteran actor, generally of, mob movies and stuff like that, Paul Sorvino, whose daughter Mira Sorvino was a big actress in the 1990s. William N. Stape is an American screenwriter and magazine writer who wrote episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine. But that just seems like a weird inclusion. Okay, so he ghosted on this episode and they want to mention him. I thought it was going to be something more exciting than that. Boo on you, Wikipedia, giving us boring stuff. So super obvious Prime Directive violation. Sorry. But this was from the point of view of Worf, who's a character that we love. And let's not forget that Worf is the character that we have seen the most in all of Star Trek, and that is not likely to ever change because he was in the entirety of the series. He was in 4 seasons of Deep Space Nine, and then 4 movies, and then an entire season of Picard. So it would take a lot for a single character to go over that. I think I figured it out for somebody once recently, and he's in over 250 episodes or something like that. I was having this conversation with somebody. But yeah, we knew he had a foster brother because he was adopted by his adopted parents who were from Russia, who we met, who lived on a farm world called Galt for some reason. We know that his dad was ex-Starfleet. He was a non-com who was an engineer and who retired to be a farmer on a planet. They didn't really go into that too much. We know that his foster parents raised Worf's son for a little while, but we never learned anything about his foster parents' biological son, which is this dude. We know they didn't get along. I have a brother. We don't get along. Peter has a twin brother. They seem to get along just great. So this is somewhere in between. But I don't know. LeRon, do you have a brother?
No.
Oh, okay. So no parallel there. Or do you have a sibling, maybe a sister?
I have a sister. Yeah, I have a younger sister. Yeah.
Do you guys get along, or is it really not an issue? Or not that we're having the therapy hour here, but I was just
no, we get along. We get along pretty well. As a matter of fact, there's a 12-year age gap between us, so there wasn't a lot. There wasn't a lot of like built up discord between us. To get to the point where we're like keep each other at a distance and whatnot. Like me and my sister, we're pretty cool with each other and stuff like that.
That's good. Yeah, my dad has a younger brother, almost the same age gap, like 13 years. So again, they get along, but they didn't have the traditional brother growing up like me and my brother don't get along at all because 16 months apart in age, and it's a whole thing. I like this episode for that reason. We do get Penny Johnson Gerald, who becomes Cisco's wife, whose name I'm forget, Cassidy Yates. Cassidy. Starting in late in season 3 of DS9, and then we get there's another actor who plays in both DS9 and Voyager as the very ill-fated guy who the Vidians steal his face.
Oh yeah.
Wait, that guy was in this episode?
Yeah, he's the guy who wanders out of the holodeck
and dies.
and dies quite unfairly. Yeah, he was. Yeah, so yeah, we get a little callback there. I like this episode. Some of it is pretty hokey, like, because they have to beam everybody onto the holodeck and make them think that they're on a journey because they're going to dump them on another planet that doesn't look like. But they're superstitious people that don't understand shit. So they're not like, well, the stars are going to look different, but it just means we've traveled to another land. So it's like they're pretty stupid, right? So they're going to be able to pull this off. But it's like the holodeck is glitching, so Worf has gone in disguise, and so we get to see Michael Dorn without all his Klingon appellations, which is kind of cool. But he's like, it's the sign of LaForge when the holodeck wall comes up. It's like, okay, fine. I guess you got to do something. So I liked that aspect of seeing brothers not get along and they have to work their shit out. And at the end of it, they come to a better understanding of their relationship. I think that's super cool. Like I said, my brother and I don't get along. We don't talk, unfortunately. I would love it if we could make up and have an incident like this where we're thrown into a life and death situation and it improves our relationship. Who knows? So I like to, as someone with a brother who I don't get along with, I like this episode.
Yeah.
So, LeRon,
thoughts? I didn't like this episode.
Okay. That's okay.
I don't know. I appreciate what they were doing with the episode, but I didn't really like the episode that much. It was one of those things I was like, okay, this is more of a filler episode and stuff like that, you know. And you know, like I'm starting to realize, you know, like I feel like now, because like right now Star Trek, well, right now most like streaming era like television TV shows and stuff like that, most of these seasons are only getting like 10 episodes if we're lucky. Like the average is getting 8 episodes and stuff like that, you know.
8 to 12 at the max.
Yeah, I think this is why people were pissed at Discovery, because, you know, like Discovery was getting 14, 15 episodes, while Strange New Worlds, Lower Decks, and Picard was getting 10, you know.
Right.
So like
and Discovery towards the end, they got it down to 10.
Oh, they trimmed it down. Season 5, like even my boyfriend was like, "There's only 10 episodes." Like, yeah, like they scaled back this time, you know. But you know, this is one of those times when I sit there and I realize, you know, like, hey, like this should have been a 15 episode season.
Yeah. There could have been so much fat cut out. You're absolutely right. And I don't think this is the worst offender, but I totally get where you're coming from.
It's not the worst offender. It's not the worst offender.
It's not Sub Rosa.
Yeah, we're gonna have Sub Rosa. That's gonna be in our last block, and it's
Eye of the Beholder.
Oh, we got some bad stuff coming up. Peter.
I have mixed feelings about this episode.
Okay.
While I do like the interaction between Worf and Nikolai, that's very well done.
Mm.
I do find the overemphasis on the primitive nature of the alien race a little bit too much because of the stuff that they're carrying around doesn't put them in the Stone Age. It puts them in like the really, really early rural Middle Ages.
Okay.
Is based on like the costuming and the kinds of tools and stuff that they have.
Right.
Yeah.
And so making like, oh, they're so ignorant, oh, they're so this, and oh, they can't do shit. And it's like, okay, well, somebody really doesn't like that period of history.
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot
so it's like they're not that dumb at that point.
Right.
So it seemed like there was a little bit of projecting going on with the aliens. I mean, that's just a thing that happened it happened in that era of Star Trek. It still happens now. Actually, it's not unique.
True.
But
true.
It's just that's something that bothers me a little bit. It's not something that kills the episode, but it does annoy me. I think the thing that really drove me nuts was oh yes, well, we can't do anything because we're breaking the Prime Directive, but we're gonna sit here and watch everyone on the planet die.
Yeah, big time.
Like as much as I like to praise your moral decisions, Mon Capitan, that ain't it, Chief.
Exactly.
And so it's one of those moments where I'm just like, as much as I really like Picard in a lot of the decisions he makes and the level-headed sort of way that he commands, this was like, this was one of those episodes, like, I'm not sure if it's you wrote the character badly or this is just a flaw that we have that we're going to gloss over, but it was ugh.
This is, I'm glad you mentioned that, because this is one of those things where I think because of how they wrote the character, the fandom behind Jean-Luc Picard, have like gotten like really inflexible and stuff like that, because like if you look at Cisco, Janeway, Burnham, maybe, okay, Pike is a different. I feel like Pike is the best captain, but actually, Pike and Cisco, we need to just put them in the boxing ring. We need to put them in the boxing ring and find out who's going to come out supreme.
Well, we know who will swing first.
Yeah, exactly. We know who punched Q in the face. Yeah, absolutely.
Freeman. Like all these. Yeah. Everybody takes all these captains and puts them up against. They even put Sulu up against freaking Picard, and it's like, this is not fair at all, because like. And I think what Star Trek Picard tried to show is like the way he was in the series is why he was this lone bitter man, by the time we get to season 1 of Picard, so like that. He was definitely one of those people that could not see past his own uniform in certain instances.
Absolutely.
He got so magnanimous and all this stuff. And, and Janeway was almost like that season 1 of Voyager, because, oh my God, like her uniform was so stiff. I was like, she's going to break her back,
There's so much starch in her uniform. I don't think she could bend over.
And her hair. Look at that. Her hair is not a hair out of place.
Yeah. Right. So, yeah, but in all seriousness, I think the other problem is, and, Peter, you also, because of what you said about Picard, this also seemed a little uncharacteristic of Picard at the same time. Picard was always an empathetic guy, because like when the thing with Data and Sarjenka, when he accidentally like answered like a radio mission,
they still went and saved her. Yeah,
exactly. Like Picard dressed Data down, but at the same time, he was like, we gotta do something.
It's probably because she was a little girl, and they were like, fuck these people. We don't give a shit.
I thought Picard hated children.
Oh, you're right. That is a definite misnomer. I don't get it. Oh, all right. Well, let's wrap it up. We'll go through and pick a favorite and a least favorite. I feel like I know where this is going to go. I'll let Peter swing first. Favorite and least favorite.
Okay. My favorite. There's a bit of a tie for this one, which is weird. So I'm gonna go with Pegasus. Almost parallels, but Pegasus, just because I like some of the intrigue and stuff a little bit more. As much as I love parallels, Pegasus just edges it out just a little bit.
And more nice character development. You can see Riker, hey, Riker is virtuous and he's like he's our first top guy, but once upon a time he was a dumb kid.
Yeah, and Pressman as a bad role really like shines as an antagonist, whereas like in parallels it's the situation. So which works, but I think that in Pegasus it's a little bit more compelling. And then least favorite.
What a non-Sophie's choice this is.
Yeah, it's there's several episodes that I really don't like. But if I had to pick one, it's going to be Force of Nature, just because there is so little in that episode that's actually redeemable.
When your B plot is let's train Spot Data's cat. Just turn the lights off. It is done. That's rough. Oh yeah, that's me. Anyway, we had agreement here. LeRon, you had an agreement. What's your worst?
I don't know, man. I don't know. Like a home, like a homeward inheritance are like they're fighting.
Gotta pick one.
Actually, you know what? It's gotta be Homeward. It's gotta be Homeward. I did like the exposition they gave. Like, Worf was one of those characters that was very interesting from season 1 to season 7. Of TNG. And of course from season 4 to 7 of the Next Generation, and season 3 of Picard. Worf was one of those characters. He got a lot of exposition and stuff like that. So it was nice to see another layer peeled back with the Worf, and seeing how he became like the person he is and stuff like that. But also, like, I was like, you could have found any other story to help us understand how Worf is. So like, Oh, like where the hell's Alexander?
Yeah.
You could have brought Alexander back to the ship, and we could have had some real war, like growing moments
Hey,
again.
he was around. I figure the ship is so big, people just get lost, and that's why you never see him again. Oh, we haven't seen him in weeks. He must be living in the engineering hull somewhere.
And Alexander's somewhere in Cetacean Ops where no one goes, so who knows?
Yeah, exactly.
Just
He's
swimming with the dolphins.
Never going to end up coming back. Oh, my goodness. Well, that brings us to a wrap. LeRon, awesome to have you back. We will have you back again. Count on it. Where do people find you out there if they want to chat with you about Star Trek or whatever?
All right. Well, you can hit me up any and all of my socials. It's real easy. Exodus803, EXODUS 803. You can find me practically everywhere on that. I'm also with the Boss Rush Network. So head over to bossrush.net. I was about to say .org. Head over to bossrush.net. I'm one of the co-hosts of the Boss Rush podcast. Our new shows are out every Thursday. New shows are out every Thursday and stuff like that. And I've got my own little side projects and stuff going on. But of course, just catch me in any of my socials or reach out to me throughout the Boss Rush Network, and you'll find me.
Excellent. Peter, what about you?
You can find me around the interwebs at Petrus Aquinas on most of them. I'm more active on Discord, but I'm mostly silent. So if you poke at me, I might say something, but that's pretty much it. You can also find me over on ELH's Twitch and YouTube channel, where I'm playing a Temerian. And you can also find me behind the scenes over at Starship Excelsior.
Love it. And as always, you can find me on the big socials. That would be Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky is at the C3 TheCeeThree. But just like Peter, I'm over on Discord. Our Secret Friends Unite Discord is a great place to talk about all things related to fandom and geekery. If you have a specific thought, we would love to get more feedback. And if you're an email person, secretfriendsunite@gmail.com. Drop us a letter. We would love to hear what you thought about what we talked about this time. If we were all wrong about any of these episodes, we would love to hear your feedback. But with that, that's been the show. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to tell you that sharing is caring, and to keep on trekking.
Peace and long life.
So long.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and podcast services around the galaxy, as well as video on our YouTube channel. You can support Secret Friends Unite by becoming a Patreon member, get bonus programs and more over at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Join our Discord community for even more discussions on all things geek. For all the latest updates on Secret Friends Unite, make sure to follow us on Threads at secret.friends.unite and visit secretfriendsunite.com. Find our merchandise at TeePublic and Redbubble. Thanks for listening, and may the Force live long and prosper.